Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, The Collapse. The summer heat pressed down on Maxwell Reed as he finished repairing the custom motorcycle in his garage. At 42, Max had built Reed custom choppers from nothing into the most prestigious motorcycle shop in the Pacific Northwest. His calloused hands bore testament to decades of meticulous work, a stark contrast to the polished business facade he maintained for his high-end clientele. The phone rang, interrupting his concentration. "Mr. Reed?" An unfamiliar voice trembled on the other end. "This is Mercy General Hospital. Your wife has collapsed and been admitted to our ICU. You need to come immediately." Max's heart hammered against his ribs as he dropped everything, barely remembering to lock up before racing to his truck. 15 years of marriage to Adrienne flashed through his mind. Their whirlwind romance when she'd walked into his fledgling motorcycle shop, their lavish wedding that had nearly bankrupted him, the birth of their daughter Lily, now 14. The hospital's antiseptic smell assaulted him as he burst through the emergency doors. A nurse with tired eyes intercepted him. "Mr. Reed? I'm Nurse Patel. Your wife is stabilized but unconscious. The doctor is with her now. What happened?" "She was fine this morning." Max's voice cracked despite his attempt to maintain composure. "She appears to have suffered a severe allergic reaction, but we're still running tests." Nurse Patel hesitated. "There's something else. Please, bring your daughter here immediately." "Lily? She's at soccer practice. What does she have to do with this?" The nurse's expression grew guarded. "The doctor believes your daughter may have information relevant to your wife's condition." Confused and increasingly anxious, Max called Lily's coach and arranged to pick her up. During the tense drive back to the hospital, Lily fidgeted nervously, her soccer uniform still grass-stained from practice. "Dad, is Mom going to be okay?" Her voice was small, fragile. "The doctors are doing everything they can, Princess." Max squeezed her hand reassuringly, though dread pooled in his stomach. Upon their return, Nurse Patel led them to a small consultation room where Dr. Alvarez waited, his expression grave. "Mr. Reed, we've determined your wife experienced anaphylactic shock from peanut exposure. Her medical records show no previous allergies." Max frowned. "She doesn't have any allergies that I know of. That's why we asked for your daughter." Dr. Alvarez turned to Lily. "Honey, do you know if your mother takes any medications we should know about?" Lily's face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks. "She's not allergic to peanuts," she whispered. "She fakes it whenever Dad's around." The room fell silent as Max stared at his daughter. "What are you talking about?" "She eats peanut butter cups all the time with Uncle Brett when you're not home." Lily's voice trembled. But today she had a real reaction to something else. "Uncle Brett." Max's voice hardened. "You mean Brett Sawyer? My business partner?" Lily nodded, unable to meet her father's eyes. "He comes over a lot when you're away at bike shows." Dr. Alvarez cleared his throat. "Mr. Reed, we found traces of a prescription medication in your wife's system that interacted badly with something she consumed. Do you know if she takes any?" "No," Max said flatly. "I don't know anything about her medications." A cold realization spread through him as fragments of memory clicked into place. Adrienne's sudden headaches whenever he initiated intimacy, her insistence that he take Lily to her soccer games while she rested, the late-night texts she quickly hid when he entered the room. "Can I see her?" Max asked, his voice eerily calm. "She's regained consciousness, but is still groggy," Dr. Alvarez replied. "Room 412. Just for a few minutes." As they approached Adrienne's room, Max paused outside the door. Through the small window, he could see his wife lying pale against the hospital sheets, and Ford dripping steadily into her arm. Beside her sat Brett Sawyer, his head bowed as he clutched Adrienne's hand. "Lily, wait here," Max instructed, his tone brooking no argument. What Max witnessed upon entering the room left him speechless. Brett was pressing his lips to Adrienne's hand, whispering words Max couldn't hear. A diamond bracelet, one Max had never seen before, glinted on Adrienne's wrist. "Max!" Adrienne's eyes widened in shock as she hastily withdrew her hand from Brett's grasp. You're here. Brett stood awkwardly, his 6'3" frame dwarfing Max's more compact, muscular build. Hey man, I came as soon as I heard. I bet you did, Max replied, his voice dangerously soft. He turned to his wife. How long? Adrienne's makeup-free face paled further. What are you talking about? Don't. Max's single word sliced through the pretense. Lily told us about your fake peanut allergy. About Uncle Brett visiting when I'm gone. Brett stepped forward, hands raised placatingly. Look, Max, you've got the wrong idea. I'm talking to my wife. Max interrupted without looking at him. How long, Adrienne? Tears welled in Adrienne's eyes. Max, please, I can explain. I wasn't feeling well, and Brett was just checking on me. 3 years. Lily's voice came from the doorway. All heads turned to see her standing there, shoulders squared despite the tears streaming down her face. It's been going on for 3 years, Dad. Since I was 11. And in that moment, as Max looked from his daughter's devastated face to his wife's guilty one, something hardened inside him. The Max Reed who had rushed anxiously to the hospital for his collapsed wife disappeared, replaced by a man whose capacity for forgiveness had just run out. Chapter 2. The Awakening. The following week passed in a haze of controlled fury for Max. He moved through necessary motions, helping Adrienne return home from the hospital, maintaining a veneer of normalcy for Lily's sake, and continuing to run his business, all while his mind worked with cold precision. He installed cameras in their home under the guise of security concerns following Adrienne's medical emergency. He hired a private investigator named Veronica Quinn, a former customer whose aggressive Harley fat boy he'd customized 2 years prior. He documented every text, every call, every suspicious absence. Adrienne, perhaps sensing the shift in him, attempted reconciliation. Max, we need to talk about what happened, she said one evening as he mechanically prepared dinner for the three of them. It wasn't what it looked like. No. His knife came down hard on the cutting board, chopping carrots with surgical precision. Tell me what was then. Brett and I, we're just close friends. He's been helping me through some personal issues. Max's laugh held no humor. Personal issues that require him to give you diamond bracelets and kiss your hand. Personal issues that coincidentally occur whenever I'm out of town. Adrienne's face flushed. You're never home, Max. Always at some bike show, some custom job, some client meeting. Brett listens to me, understand what I need. Max set down the knife and turned to face her fully. What you need, he said quietly, is a better poker face. Lily's known for 3 years, Adrienne. Our daughter has been carrying that secret while you played happy family. Tears spilled down Adrienne's cheeks. I never meant to hurt her. Were you? It just happened, and then I didn't know how to stop it. That's the difference between us, Max replied, turning back to his chopping. I would have known how to stop it. I wouldn't have started it in the first place. Across town, Brett Sawyer's life continued as though the hospital confrontation had never occurred. He showed up at their shared business space daily, managing the books while Max built the bikes. He smiled and joked with customers, made calls to suppliers, and occasionally cast nervous glances at Max's impassive face. We should talk about this, Brett finally said on the 5th day, cornering Max in the workshop. Max continued adjusting the carburetor on a vintage Triumph. Nothing to talk about. Come on, man. 15 years of friendship has to count for something. Let me explain. 13 years of friendship, Max corrected without looking up. 2 years of betrayal. And you explained plenty when I caught you holding my wife's hand in the hospital. Brett ran a hand through his thinning hair. It's complicated. Adrienne and I, we didn't plan this. She was lonely, and I was going through my divorce. Max finally looked up, his eyes cold. My daughter knew for 3 years, Brett. 3 years of watching her mother lie to my face while you played uncle to her. Did either of you think about what that did to her? Brett had no answer. That night, Veronica Quinn delivered her first report. They meet at the Lakeside Motel every Tuesday and Thursday, usually around 2 p.m. He pays cash, but she's used her credit card at the cafe next door several times. She slid photographs across Max's desk. Adrienne and Brett entering the motel, kissing in his car, having lunch with their heads close together at a secluded restaurant. Max studied them impassively, Their text messages? Explicit. Veronica handed him a printout. He's promised to leave his new girlfriend for her once they figure out how to handle you. There's also this. She passed him another document. Brett's been systematically transferring small amounts from your business accounts to his personal one. About $200,000 over the past 3 years. Max nodded, unsurprised. And the other matter? Your daughter's been communicating with them both. It appears they've been trying to convince her not to tell you, promising she could live with them once they're together. Veronica hesitated. I don't normally get involved beyond facts, but the psychological manipulation of your kid is disturbing. Something dangerous flashed in Max's eyes. Thank you, Veronica. There will be a bonus in your final payment. After the PI left, Max sat alone in his home office, systematically organizing the evidence. Around midnight, a soft knock at the door interrupted his concentration. Dad! Lily stood hesitantly in the doorway, dressed in pajamas too childish for her 14 years. Can I talk to you? Max immediately set aside his work. Of course, princess. Always. Lily perched on the edge of the chair across from him, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. I have to tell you something, and you're going to hate me. I could never hate you, Max said firmly. Mom and Brett, they asked me to talk to you. Lily's voice wavered. They want me to convince you to give Mom a quick divorce. Brett says if you fight it, they'll take me away from you. Max's knuckles whitened as he gripped the arms of his chair. Did they now? Lily nodded miserably. They said they'd tell the court you're dangerous because of your motorcycle club connections, that you have a violent past. Max's past before Reed Custom Choppers wasn't something he discussed often. The rough neighborhood he'd grown up in, the street fights, the brotherhood that had both protected and endangered him. He'd left that life behind before meeting Adrian, but he'd never hidden it completely. And what did you tell them? Max asked quietly. I said I'd think about it. Lily looked up, tears streaming down her face. But I don't want to lose you, Dad. They're the liars, not you. Max came around the desk and knelt before his daughter, taking her small hands in his calloused ones. Listen to me, Lily. No one is taking you away from me. No one is taking anything from us ever again. Do you understand? Lily nodded, searching his face. What are you going to do? I'm going to protect what's mine, Max said simply. And I need you to trust me, even when things get complicated. Can you do that? Yes, Lily whispered. Good girl. Max brushed her hair back from her face. Now, I need you to do something for me. I need you to pretend, just for a little while, that you're helping them. Tell them you'll talk to me about the divorce. Can you do that? Understanding dawned in Lily's eyes. You're setting a trap. Max smiled grimly. I'm teaching them about consequences. Now go get some sleep, princess. Things are going to change soon. After Lily left, Max picked up his phone and made a call to a number he hadn't dialed in almost 20 years. Wolf, he said when a gruff voice answered. It's Hammer. I need a cash in that favor. Chapter 3, The Strategy. 3 days after Lily's revelation, Max sat across from Pierce Harrington, the most ruthless divorce attorney in the state. Despite the unseasonable heat, Harrington wore a three-piece suit, his silver hair immaculately styled. Let me be clear, Mr. Reed, Harrington said, reviewing the evidence Max had provided. You have more than enough here to ensure a favorable divorce settlement. Your wife's infidelity, the business partner's embezzlement. These are straightforward cases. Max leaned forward. I'm not interested in straightforward. I want comprehensive. Harrington's eyebrow arched. Meaning I don't just want to win the divorce. I want them to regret ever thinking they could take what's mine. A slow smile spread across the attorney's face. Now that's a strategy one can work with. Tell me what you have in mind. Later that day, Max met with Dylan Wolf Rodriguez, his former motorcycle club brother, who now ran a private security firm staffed almost entirely by veterans and former club members. They sat in Wolf's Spartan office, surrounded by monitors displaying various client locations. Your guy's not careful, Wolf observed, showing Max surveillance footage of Brett meeting a man in a parking garage. He's been talking to this character, small-time loan shark named Carson Webb. Borrowed $50,000 last month. Gambling? Max asked. Wolf shook his head. Nah, looks like he's trying to liquidate assets and disappear. The embezzlement from your business was just the beginning, my guess. He and your wife are planning to run once they've bled you dry through the divorce. Max's expression hardened. Not happening. What do you need from me, brother? Wolf asked, his loyalty to his former club made unwavering despite the decades between them. Protection for Lily, surveillance on them both, and Max hesitated. I need access to Brett's boat. Wolf didn't ask questions. That had always been their way. Consider it done. Over the next week, Max's plan took shape with methodical precision. During the day, he maintained his routine, working at the shop, caring for Lily, and treating Adrian with a detached politeness that clearly unnerved her. Nights were spent in careful preparation, building the web that would ultimately trap them both. On Tuesday, Adrian approached him in the kitchen after Lily had gone to bed. I spoke with a mediator today, she said, attempting casualness. About the divorce. They think we could settle this amicably for Lily's sake. Max nodded thoughtfully. That's interesting timing. Lily mentioned something similar, that you and Brett wanted a quick settlement. Adrian paled slightly. She's upset and confused. We just want what's best for everyone, including the part where you threatened to take my daughter if I don't cooperate. Max's voice remained conversational, but his eyes were cold. Max, I would never. Save it. He turned back to the dishes he'd been washing. I've spoken with my attorney. You'll have papers by the end of the week. Adrienne's relief was palpable. Thank you. I know this isn't easy, but it's better for everyone if we just move forward. Max said nothing, merely continued methodically cleaning each plate and setting it in the rack to dry. The next day, Brett approached him at the shop, his confidence obviously bolstered by Adrienne's report. Max, I want you to know that Adrian and I never meant for things to happen this way. We're prepared to be fair about the business. Fair, Max repeated, setting down the wrench he'd been using. You steal from me for 3 years, sleep with my wife, manipulate my daughter, and now you want to be fair? Brett's face reddened. Look, we all make mistakes. I'm willing to buy out your share of the business at market value. You can start fresh somewhere else. Max studied his former friend for a long moment. You know what, Brett? You're right. It's time we all move forward. He extended his hand. No hard feelings. Surprise flickered across Brett's face before he cautiously accepted the handshake. I'm glad you see it that way. Life's too short for grudges, Max said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. In fact, why don't you and Adrian take my cabin reservation this weekend? I booked it months ago for our anniversary, but obviously that's not happening now. Seems a shame to waste it. Brett's eyes widened at the unexpected offer. Are you serious? Absolutely. Lily's got a soccer tournament anyway. I'll text you the details. Max turned back to the motorcycle he'd been repairing. Consider it a peace offering. That night, Max finalized the last details with Wolf and Pierce Harrington. The attorney had filed special motions under seal, ensuring Brett and Adrian wouldn't be notified until the exact moment Max needed them to be. Wolf's team had completed their surveillance, documenting not only the affair, but also Brett's meetings with various shady characters as he attempted to gather cash. You sure about this timeline? Wolf asked as they reviewed the plan. Seems tight. It has to be, Max replied. They're planning to run with everything. My business, my money, my daughter. This ends now. As he drove home that night, Max reflected on the path that had led him here. He had built his life carefully after leaving his troubled past behind. The legitimate business, the respectable marriage, the comfortable home. He had trusted Brett, loved Adrian, created a safe world for Lily. And they had conspired to destroy it all. Max Reed had walked away from violence once. He had chosen a different path, believing he could leave the darkness behind. But as he pulled into his driveway, he embraced a simple truth. Some betrayals can never be forgiven. Some debts can only be paid in full. Chapter 4. The Deception. The lakeside cabin stood isolated among towering pines, its weathered exterior belying the luxury within. Max had purchased it 5 years earlier as an investment property, renting it to wealthy vacationers while occasionally using it himself for family getaways. Now, as Brett's sleek Mercedes pulled up the gravel drive, the cabin served a different purpose. I still can't believe Max just gave us his anniversary reservation, Adrian said, stepping out of the car. She wore a new sundress, her blonde hair freshly highlighted for the occasion. Brett popped the trunk, retrieving their bags and an expensive bottle of champagne. He's finally accepted reality. Makes our lives easier if he goes quietly. Inside, the cabin exceeded their expectations. Vaulted ceilings, a stone fireplace, panoramic windows overlooking the pristine lake. A handwritten note sat on the kitchen counter beside a gift basket. "Enjoy your weekend. Consider this my parting gift," Adrian read aloud. "Sign, Max." Brett snorted. Guess he's trying to ease his conscience. Or he's finally growing up. Adrian set down the note. After all these years of being married to a man who never outgrew his motorcycle obsession, it's refreshing to see some maturity. They spent the afternoon exploring the property, drinking the champagne on the private dock, and finalizing their plans for after the divorce. By evening, they were celebrating in the master bedroom, unaware of the small camera hidden in the smoke detector, transmitting their every word and action to Max's secure server. Meanwhile, across town, Max executed the next phase of his plan. He entered Brett's waterfront condo using the key he'd obtained from Wolf's team. The luxury apartment, purchased with stolen company funds, overlooked the marina where Brett kept his prized 40-foot yacht, ironically named Loyalty. Max worked methodically, placing small devices in strategic locations throughout the condo. In Brett's home office, he accessed the computer using the password Lily had casually obtained weeks earlier. Brett had foolishly typed it in front of her, never considering the observant teenager might remember it. The files confirmed everything the PI had discovered and more. Brett had been systematically draining not just the business accounts, but also creating false invoices to suppliers who kicked back portions to his offshore accounts. He'd established shell companies to purchase properties, including the condo itself, hiding assets that should have been part of the business's portfolio. Most damning were the emails between Brett and Adrian, dating back 4 years, not 3 as Lily had thought. They detailed not just their affair, but their methodical plan to remove Max from both the business and his family. "Patience, baby," Brett had written 3 years earlier. "We need to build this slowly. Max trusts me with the finances completely. In time, we'll have everything. The business, the house, even Lily. He'll have nothing but his precious motorcycles." Max downloaded everything to a secure drive, then moved to his final task in the condo. From his bag, he removed several small packages and placed them carefully behind furniture, inside air vents, and beneath floorboards. Not explosives. Max wasn't interested in that kind of destruction, but something that would serve his purposes just as effectively. The next morning, while Brett and Adrian enjoyed their romantic getaway, Max met with Carson Webb, the loan shark Brett had been dealing with. They sat in Webb's gaudy office above a pawn shop, the loan shark's massive bodyguard hovering nearby. "I don't know you," Webb said suspiciously. "Why should I discuss my client?" Max placed a thick envelope on the desk. "Because Brett Sorg doesn't have the money to pay you back, but I do." Webb's eyes narrowed as he counted the cash. "This is only half. The rest comes when you tell me exactly what he needed the money for, and what he offered as collateral." Webb hesitated only briefly before greed won out. Said he needed it to pay off some gambling debts before his new girlfriend found out. Offered his boat as collateral. Said it was fully paid off, worth twice what he was borrowing. Max smiled thinly. "The boat is registered to our business, not to him personally. He has no right to offer it as collateral." Webb's face darkened. "That lying son of a—" "I'll pay off his debt," Max interrupted. "In exchange for these." He slid a document across the desk. "Sign over any claim to the boat to me, and provide a statement about your dealings with Brett." "Why would I do that?" Webb asked, though his eyes kept returning to the remaining cash in Max's hand. "Because otherwise, I'll report you for lending against fraudulent collateral. My guess is you don't need that kind of attention from authorities." By the time Webb grudgingly signed the papers, Max had what he needed, proof that Brett had attempted to use company property as personal collateral for illegal loans. That afternoon, Max drove to the soccer fields where Lily's tournament was underway. He stood on the sidelines, cheering as she skillfully maneuvered past defenders to score a goal. When the game ended, she ran to him, flushed with victory. "Did you see that, Dad?" Coach says I might make varsity next year. Max hugged her, cherishing the moment of normalcy. You were amazing, princess. As they walked to his truck, Lily's excitement faded, replaced by concern. Are they at the cabin? Yes. Everything's going according to plan. Mom texted me this morning, Lily said quietly. She wants me to come live with them after the divorce. Says they can give me a more stable environment. Max's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice even. And what did you tell her? That I'd think about it. Lily looked up at him. That's what you told me to say, right? To make them think their plan is working. Exactly right. Max squeezed her shoulder, just for a little while longer. That evening, after ensuring Lily was safely staying with her best friend's family, Max drove to the marina. Brett's beloved yacht sat moored at its slip, gleaming white against the darkening sky. Using the key he'd had duplicated months earlier, Brett had carelessly left his keys unattended at the shop numerous times. Max boarded the vessel. He worked for several hours, making specific modifications to the boat systems. Not sabotage that would endanger lives, but changes that would serve his larger plan. When he finished, he placed an envelope in the boat's cabin containing copies of Brett's fraudulent loan documents, then departed as silently as he'd arrived. The final piece of his weekend work took place at Reed Custom Choppers. Max entered the shop after hours, heading straight for the office Brett had used for years. He accessed the company's financial records, implementing the changes his attorney had prepared. By morning, all trace of Brett's embezzlement would appear to have been discovered and reported to authorities, with timestamps dating back several months, as though Max had been building a case all along. As Sunday evening approached, Brett and Adrian packed their bags at the cabin, unaware that their romantic weekend had been meticulously observed and documented. They drove back to town, confident that their plans were proceeding smoothly, oblivious to the trap that was about to spring shut around them. Chapter 5. The Confrontation. Monday morning arrived with deceptive normalcy. Max opened the shop as usual, working on a custom chopper for a wealthy tech executive. Brett arrived an hour later, looking relaxed and sunburned from his weekend away. Morning, Brett said casually. Thanks again for the cabin. Adrian and I had a great time. Glad to hear it, Max replied without looking up from his work. Coffee's fresh. Brett helped himself to coffee, then headed to his office. 20 minutes later, the shout echoed through the building. What the hell is this? Max calmly set down his tools and followed the sound to Brett's office. His former friend stood behind his desk, face flushed with anger, staring at his computer screen. Problem? Max asked mildly. My accounts are frozen. All of them. Brett jabbed at his keyboard. And there's some kind of audit notification on the company's server. What did you do? Max leaned against the doorframe. I didn't do anything. The automated security system flagged unusual transfers about 3 months ago. Been building a case ever since. Brett's expression shifted from anger to calculation. Look, I can explain those transfers. It's a tax strategy one was implementing for the business. A tax strategy that moved company funds into your personal accounts and shell corporations? Max raised an eyebrow. Interesting approach. You're making a mistake, Brett warned. I built this business with you. Without me handling the finances, you'll run it into the ground in 6 months. Max stepped into the office, closing the door behind him. Here's what's going to happen, Brett. You're going to sign over your share of the business to me at a fair market value, minus the $200,000 you embezzled, of course. You're going to hand over the keys to your condo, which was purchased with company funds. And you're going to stay the hell away from my daughter. Brett's laugh held no humor. You've lost your mind. I'm not signing anything. And when I'm done, I'll have this business, your house, and your daughter will be calling me dad while you're working as a mechanic at some second-rate garage. I figured you'd say that. Max placed a thumb drive on the desk. This contains records of your embezzlement, copies of emails between you and Adrian dating back 4 years, and footage of you offering my boat, registered to the business, as collateral for an illegal loan. The color drained from Brett's face. You're bluffing. The police have already received copies. Max continued as though Brett hadn't spoken. So has the IRS. Pierce Harrington filed motions this morning documenting your fraud as part of my divorce proceedings. Oh, and Carson Webb signed a statement about your loan and its fraudulent collateral. He wasn't happy to learn the boat wasn't actually yours to offer. Brett sank into his chair. You can't prove any of this. Already have. Max's voice hardened. You try to steal my business, my money, and my daughter. Now you'll lose everything. Adrian will never stand for this, Brett said, desperation entering his voice. We'll fight you together. Max smiled coldly. Adrian received her own set of papers this morning. By now, she knows everything, including your side piece in Portland who you've been visiting on your business trips. The one you text when Adrian's asleep beside you. Brett's eyes widened. How did you? You left your phone unlocked on your desk 2 weeks ago. Careless. Max headed for the door. The agreement's on your desk. Sign it and get out of my shop within the hour, or the FBI gets a call about your offshore accounts. Your choice. Across town, Adrian sat shell-shocked in her kitchen, surrounded by legal documents delivered by Pierce Harrington's assistant. Divorce papers citing irrefutable evidence of her 4-year affair. Financial records showing Brett's systematic theft from Max's business. Most devastating were the printed text messages between Brett and a woman named Tiffany, filled with explicit content and promises of a future together. When her phone rang, Adrian answered automatically, still numb from the revelations. Did you get the papers? Max asked without preamble. Max, we need to talk about this, Adrian pleaded. It's not what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like, Max replied. A 4-year affair, conspiracy to commit fraud, and plans to take my daughter. The custody evaluation I requested shows emotional manipulation of a minor. No judge will grant you custody after that. Adrian began to cry. Please, Max, don't do this. We can work something out. Like you and Brett worked out? Planning to bleed me dry in the divorce while he drained the business. Max's voice remained eerily calm. The settlement offer is fair. You get enough to start over, but not the house, not primary custody, and certainly not half my business. Sign it today, or I press criminal charges for conspiracy to commit fraud. You wouldn't do that to Lily, Adrian whispered. She'd be devastated if her mother went to jail. She's already devastated by your betrayal, Max countered. But you're right. I'm thinking of her. That's why the offer includes a non-disclosure agreement. Sign it, and your boyfriend's crimes stay between us. Refuse, and everything becomes public record. After hanging up, Max returned to his work, methodically rebuilding a vintage engine while Brett cleared out his office. The other employees watched in confused silence as Brett carried boxes to his car, his face ashen. Just before noon, Brett placed a signed document on Max's workbench. You've ruined me, he said, his voice shaking with rage. I hope you're satisfied. Max glanced at the signature, then tucked the paper into his pocket. Get off my property. This isn't over, Brett warned. For your sake, it better be. Max turned back to his engine. I've only used a fraction of what I have on you. Push me, and you'll lose more than your condo and boat. That evening, Max picked up Lily from her friend's house, bringing her home to find Adrian packing suitcases in the master bedroom. Mom, Lily stood in the doorway, watching her mother frantically shoving clothes into bags. Adrian looked up, her eyes red from crying. Lily, baby, I'm going to be staying with a friend for a while. Your father and we're getting divorced. I know, Lily said quietly. You and Brett have been planning it for a long time. Adrian flinched. It's complicated, sweetheart. Adult relationships, sometimes. Save it. Max interrupted from behind Lily. She knows everything, Adrian. Has for years. Adrian sank onto the bed, her composure cracking. Lily, I know you're angry now, but someday you'll understand. I wasn't happy. I needed more than a faithful husband who built a successful business, so you could have everything you wanted. Max finished. Than a father who never missed a single one of her soccer games? Is that what you needed more than? You don't get to claim moral high ground. Adrian snapped, anger temporarily overriding her distress. You've destroyed Brett financially. His accounts are frozen, his condo's being repossessed. He has nothing. He tried to steal everything from me. Max replied evenly. Actions have consequences. Lily stepped forward, Her young face set in lines of hurt and determination. You lied to me, Mom. For years. You and Brett made me keep your secret. Said it would hurt Dad too much if I told. Do you know what that did to me? Adrian reached for her daughter, but Lily stepped back. Baby, I never meant to hurt you. We were going to be a family. You, me, and Brett. I already had a family, Lily said, her voice breaking. And you broke it. Max placed a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. The settlement papers are on the kitchen counter. Your lawyer has reviewed them and advised you to sign. There's a cashier's check for the agreed amount. You have until morning to decide. As they turned to leave, Adrian called out, Max, you can't just erase 15 years of marriage. We built a life together. Max paused in the doorway. And you conspired with my business partner to tear it down. Be grateful I'm not pressing charges. That night, Max sat with Lily on their back porch, the stars emerging one by one above them. You okay, princess? He asked softly. Lily leaned against his shoulder. Not really, but I will be. She hesitated. Dad, what happens now? Now we rebuild, Max said simply. Just you and me. Will you ever forgive Mom and Brett? Max looked out at the darkened yard, at the life he'd built and almost lost. Some betrayals can't be forgiven, Lily. Some debts can only be paid in full. Inside the house, Adrian silently signed the divorce papers, accepting the terms that would remove her from Max and Lily's lives with clinical precision. By morning, she would be gone, taking only what the settlement allowed her, enough to start over, but not enough to ever forget what she had lost. Chapter 6, The Revelation. 2 weeks after Adrian moved out, Max entered Reed Custom Choppers to find an envelope on his workbench. Inside was a single key and a note in Brett's handwriting. You won. Happy now. The key belonged to Brett's prized yacht, the boat he'd obtained through creative accounting of company funds and had attempted to use as collateral for his illegal loan. Max pocketed both items and continued his day as normal, overseeing the work of the 3 skilled mechanics he'd recently hired to help with the expanding business. Without Brett's financial manipulation, the shop's true profitability had become apparent, allowing Max to grow his team and take on more high-end clients. That evening, after ensuring Lily was settled at home with her homework, Max drove to the marina. Brett's yacht, now legally Max's property, sat in its slip, gleaming under the security lights. Using the key, Max boarded the vessel, conducting a thorough inspection of the modifications he'd made weeks earlier. As he worked, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You think you've won, but you have no idea what's coming. We're not finished. Max studied the message, recognizing Brett's typical phrasing. He sent no reply, simply continued his methodical inspection of the boat, ensuring everything was in place for what would come next. The following day, Pierce Harrington called with news. Brett Sawyer filed a countersuit this morning, claiming you fabricated evidence of embezzlement to force him out of the business. Max had expected this. Let him. The paper trail goes back 3 years. Every transfer, every fake invoice, every shell company, it's all documented. He's also alleging you sabotaged his personal property and hacked his accounts. The attorney's tone remained professional, but curiosity edged his voice. Anything I should know about? I access company property using company credentials, Max replied carefully. The boat is registered to Reed Custom Choppers, not to Brett personally. As for his accounts, he left his passwords in company files. Nothing illegal about reviewing company documents. Harrington clearly didn't believe the careful phrasing but continued. His new attorney is Wallace Bennett. Aggressive but sloppy. I've beaten him 4 times in court. Keep me updated, Max said before hanging up. That weekend, while Lily attended a sleepover, Max drove to a secluded fishing spot 2 hours from town. Wolf waited for him, sitting on the tailgate of his battered pickup truck, smoking a cigar. Thought you quit, Max commented, nodding at the cigar. Wolf shrugged. Special occasions only. He handed Max a folder. Everything you asked for. Bank records, internet history, phone logs. Your ex-wife and ex-partner have been busy. The contents confirmed what Max had suspected. Despite the divorce settlement's non-disclosure agreement, Adrian and Brett had continued communicating, planning their counterattack. They'd contacted former business associates, spreading rumors about Max's unstable behavior and dangerous connections. Brett had attempted to access the company's client list, presumably to poach customers for a new venture. Most concerning were the messages regarding Lily. "We'll get her back," Brett had written. "My attorney says we can prove Max is an unfit parent. We just need to be patient." Max's expression hardened as he read. "They never learn." Wolf studied his old friend. "What's the play here, Hammer?" In the old days, problems like this would have disappeared permanently. "I'm not that man anymore," Max replied, though his tone lacked conviction. Wolf raised an eyebrow. "No. From where I'm sitting, you're setting up something that goes way beyond legal remedies." Max was silent for a long moment, watching an osprey circle above the lake. "They try to take everything from me, Wolf. My business, my money, my daughter. They manipulated Lily, made her keep their secrets. Now they're still plotting, still threatening what's mine." His voice hardened. "I gave them a chance to walk away. They chose war instead." "Just making sure you're clear on what you're doing," Wolf said, grinding out his cigar. "Once this goes into motion, there's no pulling back." "I'm clear," Max assured him. "Are your men ready?" Wolf nodded. "Everything's in place. Just give the word." The next week passed in a strange calm. Max ran his business, attended Lily's soccer practices, and maintained the appearance of a man moving forward with his life. Beneath the surface, however, the machinery of his plan continued to advance with relentless precision. On Friday evening, Lily approached him as he prepared dinner. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always, princess. Are you really going to take Mom's money?" "Brett told his friend that you're trying to leave Mom with nothing, and it's not fair." Lily's expression showed her confusion. "He said you're being cruel." Max set down the knife he'd been using to chop vegetables. "What friend did Brett tell this to? And how do you know about it?" Lily shifted uncomfortably. "He told Mr. Carson at soccer practice yesterday. I heard them talking when I was getting water." "Carson Webb was at your soccer practice?" Max's voice remained calm, but alarm bells rang internally. The loan shark had no legitimate reason to be anywhere near his daughter. "He said he was there to watch his niece, but I don't know any Webb girls on the team." Lily frowned. "Dad, what's going on?" Max chose his words carefully. "Brett borrowed money from Carson Webb. Money he couldn't repay? Now Webb is pressuring him, and Brett is trying to blame me for his problems. Is that why Mom keeps calling? She left 3 messages today about money." "Your mother received a fair settlement," Max explained. "More than fair, considering what she and Brett tried to do. If she's having financial problems, that's between her and Brett." The next morning, Max made a call to Lily's soccer coach, arranging for her to stay with the coach's family for the weekend. Ostensibly so Max could handle urgent business matters, but in reality, to ensure his daughter's safety as the final phase of his plan unfolded. After dropping Lily off, Max drove to the marina. Brett's yacht, technically now Max's property, was scheduled for a sea trial with potential buyers that afternoon. Brett had arranged the showing despite no longer legally owning the vessel, another desperate attempt to generate cash. Max boarded the boat an hour before the scheduled showing, making final adjustments to the modifications he'd installed weeks earlier. As he worked, his phone rang. Veronica Quinn, the PI. "They're on the move," she reported. "Adrian just picked up Brett at his motel." Based on their conversation in the parking lot, they're heading to the marina to meet Webb and the potential buyers. "And the packages I had you place in their vehicles?" "Activated and transmitting. We're recording everything." Max ended the call and completed his preparations. Then he disembarked, driving to a vantage point overlooking the marina where he could observe without being seen. 30 minutes later, Brett arrived with Adrian, Carson Webb, and a well-dressed couple presumed to be the potential buyers. From his position, Max watched through binoculars as Brett proudly showed off the yacht, gesturing expansively as he touted its features. Max sent a text to Wolf. "They're all aboard. Proceed." Minutes later, 2 police cruisers pulled into the marina parking lot, followed by a black SUV with federal government plates. Max watched as officers approached the dock, heading directly for Brett's yacht. Even from a distance, Max could see the panic on Brett's face as he spotted the approaching authorities. The potential buyers quickly disembarked, wanting no part of whatever was unfolding. Carson Webb attempted to leave as well, but was intercepted by officers on the dock. Max's phone rang. Pierce Harrington. Your anonymous tip paid off, the attorney said. Police found exactly what you said they would on the boat. Brett, Adrian, and Webb are being taken into custody now. What the authorities found was damning. In the hidden compartments Max had identified in his earlier inspection, police discovered a substantial quantity of illegal substances. The packages Max had placed in their vehicles weeks earlier weren't drugs. They were GPS trackers and recording devices that had documented Brett and Webb's conversations about using the yacht for smuggling operations. The truth was more complex than authorities initially understood. Brett, desperate for cash after losing his stake in the business, had turned to Webb not just for loans, but for a more lucrative partnership. Webb had connections to drug suppliers, and Brett had the perfect transport vehicle, a luxury yacht that rarely drew scrutiny. Adrian, facing financial reality after her divorce settlement, proved insufficient for the lifestyle she'd envisioned, had joined their scheme. What none of them knew was that Max had discovered their plan weeks earlier through wolf surveillance, meticulously documented everything, and then strategically tipped off authorities at the perfect moment, after ensuring the evidence was irrefutable. As Max watched the police escort Brett, Adrian, and Webb off the yacht in handcuffs, he felt no triumph, no satisfaction, only a cold certainty that justice had been served. They had conspired to destroy him, to take his daughter, to dismantle everything he'd built. Now, they would face the consequences of their choices. Later that evening, Max sat alone on his back porch, nursing a whiskey as he contemplated the day's events. His phone buzzed with a text from Wolf. It's done. All three denied bail. Federal charges pending. You good? I'm good, Max replied simply. The cool night air carried the scent of approaching autumn. Max thought about Lily, safe at her coach's house, unaware that her mother had just been arrested. Tomorrow would bring difficult conversations, painful truths, and the beginning of a new chapter for both of them. But tonight, in the quiet darkness, Maxwell Reed allowed himself to acknowledge the man he had become, not the violent young hammer from his club days, but not the model citizen he'd pretended to be either. He was something in between, a man who protected what was his, who didn't start fights, but finished them definitively, who never forgave betrayal. Some might call it ruthlessness. Max called it justice. Chapter 7. The Aftermath. 6 months after the arrests, the media frenzy had finally begun to subside. The case had captivated the public. A respected businessman and his ex-wife caught in a drug smuggling operation with a known loan shark. The salacious details of infidelity, embezzlement, and revenge had fueled endless speculation and gossip. Max had successfully shielded Lily from the worst of it, transferring her to a private school where her mother's disgrace wouldn't follow her through the hallways. At 15, she showed remarkable resilience, though the mandatory counseling sessions revealed lingering trauma from years of being forced to keep her mother's secrets. On a crisp autumn morning, Max sat in Pierce Harrington's office, reviewing the latest developments in the case. Brett accepted a plea deal, Harrington reported, sliding a document across his desk. 15 years for drug trafficking, conspiracy, and fraud. In exchange for his testimony against Webb suppliers, they dropped some of the more serious charges. And Adrian? Max asked, his voice neutral. 10 years, eligible for parole in 7. Her attorney argued she was coerced by Brett and Webb, but the recordings from her PI proved she was an active participant. Harrington studied Max thoughtfully. The judge was particularly disturbed by the evidence that they planned to use Lily as leverage against you in the divorce. Max nodded. The judge hadn't been the only one disturbed by that revelation. It was the moment he'd decided mere financial ruin wasn't sufficient punishment for their betrayal. What about the civil suits? Max asked. All resolved in your favor. Brett's countersuits were dismissed when his criminal charges came to light. The business is entirely yours, free and clear. Harrington closed the file. You've won on every front, Mr. Reed. Completely and irrevocably. Yet victory felt hollow as Max drove to Reed Custom Choppers, which had expanded to a second location under his careful management. The shop floors bustled with activity, skilled mechanics working on custom bikes for wealthy clients across the country. Max's reputation for excellence had only grown since Brett's departure, ironically benefiting from the publicity surrounding the case. In his office, formerly Brett's domain, Max found a small package waiting on his desk. No return address, just his name written in an unfamiliar hand. Inside was a child's bracelet, crudely made of colored thread, with a note. Found this in her cell. Thought Lily might want it back. Officer Ramirez, County Detention Center. Max recognized the bracelet immediately. Lily had made it in summer camp when she was 10, giving it to Adrian, who had promised to wear it forever. Apparently, forever had ended somewhere between the divorce and the drug trafficking scheme. That evening, Max showed the bracelet to Lily as they ate dinner. This came today. You can throw it away if you want. Lily examined the faded threads, her expression unreadable. I remember making this. Mom acted like it was the most precious thing ever. She set it down carefully. Did she send it? A guard found it in her cell, Max explained. Thought you might want it back. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Do you ever miss her? Mom, Max considered the question carefully. I miss who I thought she was, he finally answered. The woman I married, the mother I thought you had. But that person wasn't real. Dr. Brennan says I need to separate my feelings about what Mom did from my feelings about Mom herself, Lily said, referencing her therapist. But I don't know how to do that. Neither do I, Princess. Max reached across the table to squeeze her hand. We just take it one day at a time. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Max received an unexpected visitor. Detective Laura Sandoval stood on his doorstep, her expression professional but troubled. Mr. Reed, sorry to disturb you so late. May I come in? Max led her to his living room, offering coffee, which she declined. Detective Sandoval had been the lead investigator on Brett and Adrienne's case, thorough and uncompromising in her pursuit of evidence. I'll be direct, she said, sitting rigidly on the edge of his couch. We've received new information about your ex-partner's smuggling operation. What kind of information? Max asked, keeping his expression neutral. Information suggesting the drugs found on the yacht were planted. Her sharp eyes never left his face. Brett Sawyer is claiming you set him up. Max met her gaze steadily. Brett's facing 15 years in federal prison. He's desperate. Perhaps. She opened her notebook. But certain aspects of the case have always troubled me. The timing of your anonymous tip. The perfectly documented evidence. The recording devices in their vehicles that you just happen to have installed through your private investigator. I was documenting their conspiracy to defraud me, Max replied calmly. When I discovered their other activities, I reported it, as any citizen should. Detective Sandoval studied him for a long moment. Mr. Reed, I've been a detective for 17 years. I've learned to recognize patterns. The evidence against your ex-wife and partner was comprehensive, meticulous, almost too perfect. Are you accusing me of something, detective? I'm observing that a man with your background might know how to orchestrate certain outcomes. She closed her notebook. Your former association with the Phantom Riders Motorcycle Club gave you connections that most people don't have. Max's expression hardened slightly. That was 20 years ago. I left that life behind. Did you? Detective Sandoval stood. Or did you just become more sophisticated in how you handle your enemies? She moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I think they deserved what they got. Using your daughter as a pawn in their schemes. She shook her head in disgust. But vigilante justice is still outside the law, Mr. Reed. After she left, Max poured himself a whiskey, contemplating her warning. He wasn't worried. The evidence he'd planted was untraceable. The recordings legitimate, even if selectively edited. Detective Sandoval might have suspicions, but suspicions weren't proof. His phone rang. Wolf. We've got a problem, his old friend said without preamble. Webb's talking to the feds, offering information in exchange for a reduced sentence. What kind of information? Max asked, though he already suspected the answer. He's claiming the whole operation was your idea. That you set up Brett and Adrian to take the fall while you handled the distribution side. Wolf's voice was grim. It's bullshit, but he's got a federal prosecutor listening. Let him talk, Max said after a moment's thought. His word against mine, and I've got recordings proving otherwise. It's more complicated than that, Wolf warned. Webb claims he has evidence you accessed the boat before the bust. Says you're the one who planted the drugs. For the first time since his plan had been set in motion, Max felt a flicker of concern. He had indeed accessed the boat. Multiple times, though he'd been careful to avoid security cameras and witnesses. He's bluffing, Max said with more confidence than he felt. Let me know if anything develops. The next day, Max received a call from an unexpected source. Adrienne's sister, Patricia, who had never approved of their marriage. I hope you're satisfied, Patricia said without greeting. My sister will spend the next decade in prison because of you. Your sister is in prison because she conspired to traffic drugs and steal my business, Max corrected coldly. You really expect me to believe that? Patricia's voice dripped with scorn. Adrienne never touched drugs in her life. This has your fingerprints all over it, Max. Everyone knows you set them up. Everyone being you and Brett's mother? Max asked sarcastically. Being anyone who knows what you're capable of, Patricia shot back. The prosecutors may have bought your innocent act, but I know better. You couldn't stand that Adrienne found happiness with someone else, so you destroyed them both. After ending the call, Max drove to Reed Custom Choppers, burying himself in work to avoid dwelling on Patricia's accusations. He was applying a custom paint job to a vintage Harley when his attorney called again. Webb made his deal, Harrington reported grimly. In exchange for information about his suppliers, he's getting a reduced sentence. But there's more. He's also provided a statement implicating you in planting evidence. Max set down his paint gun. Can they prove anything? Not yet, but the federal prosecutor has requested a review of the case. Detective Sandoval is reopening her investigation. Keep me posted, Max said before hanging up. That evening, as Max helped Lily with her algebra homework, his mind kept returning to the developing threat. He'd been meticulous in his planning, careful to leave no traceable evidence of his involvement. But if Webb truly had something concrete? Dad, are you listening? Lily's voice broke through his thoughts. Sorry, princess. Distracted by work stuff. Max refocused on the equation before her. So you need to isolate the variable by moving everything else to the opposite side. Lily studied him skeptically. Is everything okay? You seem worried. Max considered lying, then thought better of it. Lily had endured enough deception. There might be some new developments in your mother's case. Nothing for you to worry about. Is she trying to get out of prison? Lily asked, her voice small. No, nothing like that. Just some legal complications. Max squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. Everything's going to be fine. But as the days passed, the situation grew increasingly precarious. Detective Sandoval obtained warrants to search Max's home and business, confiscating his computers and phones. The federal prosecutor interviewed Wolf and several other former Phantom Riders, seeking connections between Max and known drug suppliers. Pierce Harrington called with disturbing news. They've obtained marina security footage showing someone who matches your description boarding the yacht 3 days before the arrest. The face isn't clear, but the build and clothing are similar. Max had been certain that camera was non-functional. It had shown no indicator light when he'd checked. A critical oversight in his otherwise perfect plan. It's circumstantial, Max replied, projecting confidence he no longer felt. Thousands of people matched that description. Perhaps, but combined with Webb's testimony and the detective's suspicions, it's concerning. Harrington's voice grew serious. Max, if there's anything you haven't told me, now would be the time. 2 days later, Detective Sandoval returned with another warrant, this time for Max's arrest. He was charged with evidence tampering, perjury, and conspiracy to distribute controlled substances. Max Reed, you have the right to remain silent, Sandoval recited as she handcuffed him in front of his shocked employees. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The following weeks were a nightmare. Max was released on bail, but placed under house arrest with an ankle monitor. Lily went to stay with Wolf's sister, a dental hygienist with no criminal connections who lived in a respectable neighborhood across town. Pierce Harrington worked tirelessly, challenging the prosecution's evidence and Webb's credibility. The security footage is grainy at best, he argued during a preliminary hearing. And Carson Webb is a convicted loan shark facing decades in prison. He'd say anything to reduce his sentence. But the federal prosecutor was building a compelling case. They'd found traces of Max's DNA on the yacht in areas near where the drugs had been hidden. A former Phantom Rider, seeking to reduce his own sentence on unrelated charges, claimed Max had approached him about obtaining illegal substances. Worst of all, they discovered payments from one of Max's offshore accounts, established years earlier as a tax shelter for his legitimate business, to a shell company linked to Webb's operation. Max had no recollection of authorizing such payments, but the evidence seemed irrefutable. "They're framing me," Max insisted during a strategy session with Harrington. "Brett or Webb must have accessed my account somehow." "The transactions date back 18 months, Harrington pointed out. "That's a year before your wife's hospitalization, before you had any reason to target Brett." For the first time, Max began to consider the possibility that he'd been outplayed at his own game. Had Brett anticipated Max's discovery of the affair? Had he been laying groundwork to implicate Max if his own schemes were exposed? The evidence continued to mount. A search of Max's garage uncovered a burner phone containing texts that appeared to coordinate drug pickups. His fingerprints were found on financial documents linking him to Webb's operation. As his trial date approached, Max faced an impossible choice: maintain his innocence against increasingly damning evidence, or accept a plea deal that would send him to prison but for a significantly reduced sentence. 10 years, eligible for parole in 5, Harrington reported after meeting with the prosecutor, in exchange for a full confession and testimony against any remaining members of Webb's network. "And if I refuse?" Max asked. "We go to trial, where you face up to 30 years if convicted." Harrington's expression was grim. "The evidence is substantial, Max. I can't in good conscience tell you we have a strong chance of winning." That night, confined to his home by the ankle monitor, Max sat on his back porch staring at the stars, the same stars he contemplated with Lily months earlier while promising they would rebuild their lives together. Now he faced the prospect of watching her grow up through prison visitation rooms, becoming a distant figure in her life rather than the father she deserved. His phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. "Listen carefully," a familiar voice said. "This is Nurse Patel from Mercy General." Max frowned in confusion. "The nurse from when Adrian was hospitalized?" "Yes. We haven't much time," she continued urgently. "There's something you need to know about your wife's admission that day." Chapter 8. The Vindication. Nurse Patel's revelation changed everything. Speaking hurriedly, she explained that she'd been reviewing old medical records for a hospital audit when she noticed inconsistencies in Adrienne's case. "Your wife wasn't admitted for an allergic reaction initially," she explained. "The first responders reported symptoms consistent with drug toxicity. But when Dr. Alvarez arrived, the diagnosis was changed to anaphylaxis." "Why are you telling me this now?" Max asked, struggling to understand the significance. "Because Dr. Alvarez was just arrested for falsifying medical records for several patients with connections to Carson Webb." Her voice lowered. "And because I saw Brett Sawyer speaking with him before he changed your wife's diagnosis. I didn't think anything of it then, but with recent news reports." After the call ended, Max immediately contacted Pierce Harrington, relaying the nurse's information. The attorney was cautiously optimistic. "If we can prove Brett had Dr. Alvarez falsify Adrienne's medical records, it establishes a pattern of deception and conspiracy that predates your alleged involvement." Harrington's legal mind was already constructing a defense. "It could support our claim that you're being framed." The following days brought a flurry of activity as Harrington's team investigated this new lead. They discovered that Dr. Alvarez had indeed falsified numerous medical records for patients connected to Webb's operation, creating medical explanations for injuries or conditions actually caused by drug use or violence. More crucially, financial records revealed payments from one of Brett's shell companies to an offshore account linked to Dr. Alvarez. The transactions coincided with Adrienne's hospitalization and several other suspicious medical incidents. Armed with this information, Harrington requested an emergency hearing. "Your Honor," New evidence has come to light that directly contradicts the prosecution's timeline and suggests my client is the victim of an elaborate frame-up orchestrated by the very individuals who testified against him. The judge, initially skeptical, became increasingly attentive as Harrington presented the evidence of Dr. Alvarez's corruption and his connection to Brett and Webb. Furthermore, Harrington continued, "We have reason to believe that the offshore account allegedly used by Mr. Reed to finance drug operations was actually compromised by Mr. Sawyer, who had access to all of Mr. Reed's financial information as his business partner." The prosecution requested time to investigate these new allegations, and the judge granted a 2-week continuance. During that time, Max remained under house arrest, but for the first time since his arrest, he felt a glimmer of hope. Wolf visited one evening, bringing dinner and updates from his network of contacts. "Alvarez is talking," he reported, "trying to save his own skin by giving up everyone he worked with, including Brett and Webb." "And Adrian?" Max asked, picking at his food without appetite. Wolf's expression darkened. "She knew everything, Max. According to my source in the prosecutor's office, Alvarez claims she was fully aware of the drug operation for at least 2 years. She wasn't just cheating with Brett. She was his partner in every sense." The revelation shouldn't have hurt after everything that had happened, but Max felt a fresh wave of betrayal. Not just an affair, but a criminal conspiracy that had been operating right under his nose for years. "What about Lily?" he asked quietly. "Did she know about the drugs?" "No," Wolf said firmly. Alvarez was clear on that. They kept the kid completely in the dark about that part. She only knew about the affair. Small comfort, but comfort nonetheless. 2 days later, Detective Sandoval arrived at Max's home unannounced. She declined to sit when offered, standing rigidly in his living room with a conflicted expression. "The investigation has taken a new direction," she said without preamble. "Dr. Alvarez has provided compelling evidence that Brett Sawyer and Carson Webb were operating their drug business long before you had any reason to suspect your wife's infidelity." Max waited, saying nothing. "Furthermore, forensic accounting has identified sophisticated intrusions into your financial accounts dating back 3 years. Intrusions that appear to originate from devices registered to Brett Sawyer." She met his eyes directly. "The prosecutor is re-evaluating the charges against you." "Am I still a suspect?" Max asked. "You're a person of interest in an ongoing investigation," Sandoval replied carefully. "But the narrative has shifted significantly." The detective's visit was followed by a call from Harrington with even better news. "The judge has granted our motion to remove your ankle monitor pending further proceedings." The prosecution isn't opposing it, which speaks volumes about the direction their investigation is taking. Over the next week, the case against Max crumbled rapidly. Forensic analysis of the marina security footage revealed subtle evidence of digital manipulation. The figure boarding the yacht had been digitally inserted using sophisticated software. The burner phone found in Max's garage contained trace DNA from Brett Sawyer alongside Max's fingerprints, suggesting it had been planted. Most damning of all, Adrian broke her silence, offering a full confession in exchange for consideration in her sentencing. She admitted that she and Brett had been planning to frame Max for over a year, systematically creating false evidence to deploy if their initial scheme to take his business through divorce failed. "They executed the contingency plan when you uncovered the affair," Harrington explained during their final strategy meeting. "Brett had been skimming from the business for years, creating a paper trail that would implicate you in money laundering if necessary. When you caught them and secured the divorce settlement, they moved to Plan B, framing you for drug trafficking. Using the same drugs they were actually trafficking," Max observed with grim irony. "Exactly. They planted evidence in your home and vehicles, manipulated financial records to show connections between you and Webb's operation, and created a fictional scenario where you orchestrated everything as revenge for their affair." Harrington shook his head in grudging admiration. It was elaborate and might have worked if not for Nurse Patel's conscience. 3 days later, the prosecutor formally dropped all charges against Max. In a statement to the press, the U.S. Attorney's Office acknowledged that New evidence conclusively establishes that Maxwell Reed was the victim of an elaborate conspiracy to frame him for crimes committed by his former business partner and ex-wife. Detective Sandoval delivered the official paperwork to Max personally. "I owe you an apology," she said as he signed the final documents. "I was convinced you had orchestrated everything as revenge." "I wanted revenge," Max admitted, "but not like this." Sandoval studied him thoughtfully. "For what it's worth, I believe you, and I'm sorry for what they put you and your daughter through." She hesitated. The system doesn't always get it right, but this time, justice prevailed. As news of Max's exoneration spread, Reed Custom Choppers experienced an unexpected surge in business. Customers drawn by the dramatic story and impressed by Max's resilience. The media, which had eagerly covered his arrest, now painted him as a sympathetic figure, wronged by those closest to him. Through it all, Max focused on rebuilding his relationship with Lily, who had been deeply traumatized by the entire ordeal. Their weekly therapy sessions together gradually helped her process her feelings about both parents, the father falsely accused and the mother who had participated in the frame-up. Dr. Brennan says it's okay to still love Mom while hating what she did, Lily told him one evening as they worked together in the garage, rebuilding a vintage motorcycle as a father-daughter project. "But I don't know if I can ever forgive her." Max handed her a wrench, considering his response carefully. "Forgiveness is your choice, Princess. No one can tell you what's right for your heart." "What about you?" Lily asked, adjusting a bolt with growing confidence. "Will you ever forgive them?" Max thought about Brett and Adrian serving their sentences in federal prisons, about the years of deception, the manipulation of his daughter, the calculated attempt to destroy him completely, about how close they had come to succeeding. "Some betrayals can't be forgiven," he said finally. "Some debts can only be paid in full." Lily nodded, seeming to understand something fundamental about her father. His capacity for love matched only by his capacity for justice when those he loved were threatened. As they continued working on the motorcycle, Max felt a sense of peace that had eluded him since the day Nurse Patel had stopped him in the hospital corridor. The truth had finally emerged. Justice, in its imperfect way, had been served. And most importantly, he and Lily were rebuilding their lives together, stronger for having weathered the storm. Chapter 9. The Reckoning. 1 year after the charges against him were dropped, Max stood at the window of his expanded workshop, watching as 5 skilled mechanics worked on custom motorcycles for clients across the country. Reed Custom Choppers had not merely survived the scandal but thrived, becoming the premier custom motorcycle builder in the western United States. Pierce Harrington entered through the private door, carrying a leather portfolio. "Sorry I'm late. Court ran long." "No problem." Max led him to his office, a modern space that bore no resemblance to Brett's former domain. "What's the update?" Harrington opened the portfolio, revealing legal documents. Brett's appeal was denied. The federal appeals court upheld his 20-year sentence. Following Dr. Alvarez's testimony and additional evidence uncovered during the investigation, Brett's sentence had been significantly increased. As for Adrian, her cooperation earned her a reduced sentence, but she's still looking at 8 years, minimum. Max nodded, feeling neither satisfaction nor regret, only a cool finality. And Webb, 15 years. His previous record worked against him, despite his cooperation. Harrington hesitated. "There's one more thing. Brett's mother is moving forward with her lawsuit against you for malicious prosecution and intentional infliction of emotional distress." Max had expected this. Carol Sawyer had been vocally proclaiming her son's innocence despite overwhelming evidence, insisting that Max had somehow manipulated the justice system to frame Brett. "It's frivolous," Harrington continued. "She has no standing, no evidence, and frankly, no reputable attorney would take the case. She's filing pro se." "Let her file," Max said dismissively. "She needs someone to blame." After Harrington left, Max drove to Lily's school for her soccer championship game. At 16, she had developed into a formidable midfielder, attracting attention from college scouts despite her young age. Max watched proudly from the stands as she skillfully maneuvered past defenders, setting up the winning goal in the final minutes. "Did you see that assist?" Lily asked excitedly as they walked to his truck after the game, her team medal gleaming around her neck. "Perfect timing," Max confirmed, slinging his arm around her shoulders. Those college scouts were impressed. Lily's smile faltered slightly. "Dad, Mom wrote me another letter. She wants me to visit her." Max kept his expression neutral. Since her incarceration, Adrian had made numerous attempts to maintain contact with Lily. Letters, phone calls, requests for visits. Max had left the decision entirely to Lily, supporting her choice either way. "What do you want to do?" he asked. Lily sighed. "I don't know. Part of me wants to see her, to ask her why she did it all. But another part..." She trailed off, struggling with emotions no teenager should have to navigate. "You don't have to decide today," Max assured her. "Or ever, if that's what feels right." That evening, as they celebrated Lily's victory with dinner at her favorite restaurant, Max received a text from Wolf. "Heads up, Brett made contact." Max's body tensed, but he maintained his casual demeanor as he excused himself to return the call in private. "What kind of contact?" he asked without preamble when Wolf answered. "Letter sent to your home address. My guy at the federal facility intercepted it during mail screening." Wolf's voice was grim. "It's disturbing, Hammer. Detailed threats against you and Lily. References to people on the outside who will settle the score." Max's jaw tightened. "Forward me a copy. And increase security on Lily immediately." "Already done. Kirsten's on her way to the restaurant now. We'll follow you both home. I've also alerted Sandoval. She may want to open a new investigation." After returning to the table, Max maintained a cheerful facade for Lily's benefit, but his mind was calculating potential threats and necessary countermeasures. Brett's connections weren't extensive, but he was desperate and had nothing to lose. A dangerous combination. Later that night, after ensuring Lily was safely asleep with Wolf's most trusted operative monitoring the house, Max reviewed the intercepted letter. Brett's handwriting had deteriorated in prison, but his hatred came through clearly in every vicious sentence. "You think you've won," Brett had written, "but you have no idea what's coming. People you've never met are going to make you pay for what you did to me. And your precious daughter? She'll learn what it feels like to lose everything, just like I did." Max forwarded the letter to Detective Sandoval with a brief message. "Thought you should see this. Concerns for my daughter's safety." Her response came within minutes. "Received. Taking seriously. Will contact federal marshals and prison authorities. Suggest immediate security precautions." Over the next week, Max implemented comprehensive security measures. He installed state-of-the-art systems at both home and business, arranged for Lily to be accompanied by plainclothes security whenever he couldn't be with her personally, and adjusted his own routines to become less predictable. Detective Sandoval visited his shop to update him on the investigation. The prison has placed Sawyer in restricted communication status and is reviewing all his previous correspondence. So far, we've identified 3 potential outside contacts, former associates with criminal records. "Names?" Max asked. Sandoval hesitated, then apparently decided Max had earned the right to know. "Victor Reyes, former cellmate from Brett's DUI stint 5 years ago. Released last month from a separate sentence. Gregory Phelps, cousin with multiple assault charges. And Lisa Tanner, former girlfriend with ties to local drug networks." Max committed the names to memory, planning to have Wolf run deeper background checks. "Any active threats?" "Nothing concrete yet, but we're monitoring. I've also assigned a patrol to your neighborhood and requested additional surveillance on your business." 2 days later, Max received another call from Wolf. "We've got movement. Reyes and Phelps were spotted meeting at a bar downtown. My guy couldn't get close enough to hear the conversation, but they seemed agitated, kept looking at something on a phone." "Lily's schedule," Max guessed. "Or mine. Probably. I've got people watching them, but they're being careful." The waiting was the hardest part. Knowing threats were circulating, but unable to confront them directly. Max found himself returning to old habits from his Phantom Riders days, varying his routes, checking for surveillance, keeping his back to walls in public places. The first direct attempt came 3 weeks after Brett's letter. Max was working late at the shop when the security system alerted him to movement at the rear entrance. The cameras showed a figure in dark clothing attempting to disable the alarm panel. Max contacted Wolf rather than police, knowing his friend's team could respond faster and more decisively. Within minutes, two of Wolf's operatives had the intruder, Victor Reyes, zip-tied on the floor while Max watched him passively. "Brett sends his regards," Reyes spat, blood trickling from his split lip where he'd resisted capture. "I'm sure he does," Max replied evenly. "What was the plan here, Victor? Break in and do what exactly?" Reyes glared but said nothing. "Let me guess," Max continued. "Start a fire? Plant something illegal? Maybe rough me up a bit?" He crouched down to meet Reyes's eyes. Brett's not very creative with his revenge scenarios. When police arrived, Max provided security footage showing Reyes's break-in attempt. Detective Sandoval personally took his statement, her expression grim. "This is escalating faster than we anticipated," she observed. "Reyes has only been out of prison for 6 weeks. For him to risk returning on an attempted burglary charge, Brett must have promised him something substantial," Max concluded. The incident with Reyes proved to be just the beginning. Over the next 2 months, Max dealt with multiple threats. A suspicious package delivered to his home, safely detonated by the bomb squad, revealing no explosives but a threatening message. An attempted cyber attack on his business servers, and most alarmingly, a man following Lily after soccer practice until her security detail intervened. Through it all, Max maintained a calm exterior for his daughter's benefit, though the strain began to show in the new lines around his eyes, the increased vigilance in his movements. Lily, perceptive as always, noticed the changes. "This isn't going to stop, is it?" she asked one evening as they sat in their living room, the TV on but unwatched. "Brett's going to keep coming after us." Max considered lying, then discarded the idea. "Not forever, but for now, yes, he's trying to hurt us from prison." Lily was quiet for a moment. "Maybe I should visit Mom after all. Ask her to talk to him, make him stop." "Absolutely not," Max said firmly. "We're not putting you anywhere near either of them." "But if it would help." "It wouldn't," Max interrupted. "Brett isn't doing this because of anything you could change, Princess. He's doing it because he's facing 20 years in prison while we're rebuilding our lives. Our happiness is his torture." The turning point came unexpectedly. Max was meeting with a client at the shop when Wolf called with urgent news. "Gregory Phelps just tried to access Lily's school using a fake ID," Wolf reported, his voice tight with controlled fury. "My operative intercepted him in the parking lot. He had a knife, Max, and a burner phone with Lily's class schedule." Something cold and implacable settled in Max's chest. Every line he'd drawn, every moral boundary he'd established since leaving his troubled past behind, suddenly seemed irrelevant in the face of this direct threat to his daughter. "Where is he now?" Max asked, his voice dangerously soft. "Secure location. Police haven't been notified yet." Wolf recognized the tone in his old friend's voice. "What do you want to do?" "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Max ended the call and turned to his client. "Family emergency. We'll have to reschedule." The secure location was a remote warehouse owned by one of Wolf's shell companies. Phelps sat handcuffed to a metal chair, his face already showing evidence of rough handling by Wolf's men. He looked up defiantly as Max entered. "You're making a big mistake," Phelps growled. "I've got rights." "Not here you don't," Max replied calmly, pulling up a chair to sit facing him. "Now, I'm going to ask you some simple questions, and you're going to give me honest answers. How you feel afterward depends entirely on those answers." What followed was not an interrogation Max would ever recount to Lily or admit to Detective Sandoval. But it yielded critical information. Brett had established a network of outside contacts before his arrest, creating insurance policies to be activated if he ever went to prison. These included offshore accounts accessible to certain associates, blackmail material on former clients, and detailed plans for retribution against specific targets, with Max and Lily at the top of the list. Most crucially, Phelps revealed that Brett had been communicating with his network through coded messages passed via his mother during prison visits. Carol Sawyer, consumed by belief in her son's innocence, had become the unwitting conduit for his revenge plans. Armed with this information, Max implemented the final phase of his response. First, he provided carefully edited intelligence to Detective Sandoval, enough to justify a raid on Carol Sawyer's home that uncovered written instructions from Brett and lists of potential targets. Next, working through Pierce Harrington, he filed for and received a permanent restraining order against Carol Sawyer, legally barring her from any contact with Max or Lily and from coming within 500 feet of their home, business, or Lily's school. Finally, and most decisively, Max reached out to contacts in the federal prison system, former clients who owed him favors. Within days, Brett was transferred to a maximum security facility in Colorado, placed under the highest level of communication restrictions, and assigned to a cell block housing inmates with whom he had significant conflict from his previous criminal activities. He'll spend the rest of his sentence in protective isolation, Wolf reported after confirming the transfer. No visitors except approved attorneys, no phone privileges, mail read and censored. For all practical purposes, he's disappeared. 3 months later, life had settled into a new normal. The threats against Max and Lily had ceased entirely. Detective Sandoval reported that all of Brett's known associates had either been arrested or had fled the state. Adrian, aware of the consequences Brett had faced, had ceased all attempts to contact Lily. On a crisp autumn evening, Max and Lily sat on their back porch, much as they had the night he'd learned of Adrian's betrayal. Lily, now approaching 17, had grown taller, her face showing the first signs of the woman she would become. "I got an early acceptance letter today," she announced. "Full soccer scholarship to Washington State." "That's incredible, princess." Max's pride was evident in his voice. "We should celebrate." Lily smiled, but her expression turned thoughtful. "Dad, can I ask you something important?" "Anything. Are we safe now? Really safe?" She met his eyes directly. "I need to know the truth." Max considered his answer carefully. "Yes," he said finally. "Brett can't hurt us anymore. Neither can your mother. The people they enlisted have either been dealt with or have given up. We're safe." Lily nodded, seeming to accept his assessment. "Good, because I want to move forward without always looking over my shoulder." "That's exactly what we're going to do," Max assured her. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Max received a final update from Wolf. "It's done. All traces of Brett's network have been eliminated. Your security can be scaled back to normal levels." "Thank you," Max said simply, knowing Wolf would understand the depth of gratitude contained in those 2 words. "One more thing," Wolf added. "Webb died in prison yesterday. Inmate altercation, according to the official report." Max absorbed this information without comment. He hadn't ordered such an outcome, but he couldn't deny the sense of completion it provided. The circle was closed. The debt paid in full. The next morning, Max stood in his expanded workshop, surrounded by the business he'd built, protected, and ultimately saved. Through the window, he could see Lily heading to her car, soccer bag slung over her shoulder, future bright before her. Some might call him ruthless for the measures he'd taken to protect what was his. Others might question the moral lines he'd crossed when threatened. But looking at his daughter, safe, thriving, moving forward, Maxwell Reed felt no regret, no doubt, no hesitation. Some betrayals cannot be forgiven. Some debts can only be paid in full. And some men are willing to ensure that payment is collected, regardless of the cost. In the end, that was the truest measure of Maxwell Reed. Not what he would give for those he loved, but what he would take from those who threatened them. And he would do it all again in a heartbeat. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Perfect Day. Marcus Chun had learned to trust his instincts in the courtroom, and right now, every instinct screamed that something was wrong. The 4th of July barbecue had been Rachel's idea. Their sprawling backyard in suburban Portland filled with relatives, the smell of grilled burgers mixing with chlorine from the pool. Marcus, a criminal defense attorney known for dismantling prosecutors' cases with surgical precision, had spent the morning manning the grill while his wife played the perfect hostess. Their daughter Emma, 3 years old with her mother's blonde hair and his dark eyes, had been playing on the wooden playground set Marcus built last summer. Their son Dylan, 8 and sharp as a tack, had been keeping an eye on her, something Marcus had always appreciated about his oldest kid. The boy was observant, almost unsettlingly so. Marcus was flipping burgers when he heard his brother-in-law Jake's voice cut through the party noise. "Oh my God, Emma!" Everything slowed down. Marcus dropped the spatula and sprinted across the yard. Emma lay crumpled at the base of the 10-foot tower platform, not moving. Rachel was already there, screaming, but something about her performance felt rehearsed. No, he pushed the thought away. Not now. The hospital waiting room at Providence Portland Medical Center had that antiseptic smell that Marcus associated with bad news. Emma was in surgery, a fractured skull, broken arm, internal bleeding. The doctors said she'd been lucky. The mulch had absorbed some of the impact. Another few inches, and Marcus couldn't finish the thought. Rachel sat across from him, mascara streaked, playing the devastated mother perfectly. His own parents had come, his father Huang offering quiet support in that stoic way of his. Rachel's mother Linda hovered nearby, making calls, spreading the news through her social network like wildfire. Dylan sat next to Marcus, small and quiet. Too quiet. At 11 p.m., Dr. Reeves emerged. "She's stable. The surgery went well. We'll keep her sedated for the next 24 hours, but barring complications, she should recover fully." Rachel sobbed with relief. Marcus felt his knees buckle, and his father's hand steadied him. But when he looked at Dylan, his son wasn't looking at his mother with relief. He was studying her with something that looked like suspicion. 3 hours later, Marcus sat in a chair beside Emma's ICU bed, watching her small chest rise and fall beneath white blankets. Rachel had gone home to rest. His parents had taken Dylan to their place. The nurse came in to check vitals, and Marcus stepped into the hallway, phone in hand, ready to update the family group chat. That's when he saw Dylan walking toward him, alone. "Dad!" His son's voice was barely a whisper. "Dylan? What are you doing here?" "Grandpa, I told them I needed the bathroom." "Dad, we need to talk." Something in the boy's eyes made Marcus kneel down to his level. "What is it, buddy?" Dylan looked around, then leaned close. "Dad, do you know why Emma fell?" Marcus felt ice in his veins. "What do you mean? I saw what happened. I was right there." "Dylan, sometimes accidents. Mom did it." The world tilted. Marcus grabbed his son's shoulders, maybe too hard. "What?" "Dylan, that's not. I saw her, Dad. I was in the treehouse. Emma was playing on the platform, and Mom came up behind her. She looked around, like checking if anyone was watching, and then she pushed her. Emma didn't fall. Mom pushed her." Chapter 2, The Witness. Marcus pulled Dylan into an empty family consultation room, his mind racing through possibilities, denials, legal precedents. Anything but accepting what his 8-year-old son had just told him. "Dylan, listen to me. This is serious. Are you absolutely certain about what you saw?" His son nodded, and Marcus saw something in those young eyes that no child should have: genuine fear. "I'm not lying, Dad. I know what I saw." Mom looked around, put both hands on Emma's back, and pushed. Emma didn't even know she was there. Marcus's stomach churned. His attorney brain kicked in, cross-examining his own son. "Where exactly were you?" "In the tree house. The one on the oak tree? I was reading my comic book by the window. I could see the whole playground." "And you're sure it wasn't an accident?" "Maybe your mom was trying to steady Emma and—" "Dad." Dylan's voice was firm. Mom looked around first, like when you check before doing something you're not supposed to do. Then she pushed her. Hard. With both hands. Marcus felt his carefully constructed world crumbling. Rachel, his wife of 10 years. The woman he'd met at a charity gala, blonde and brilliant. A junior marketing executive with ambition that matched his own. They'd built a life together. A beautiful home, 2 kids, the appearance of perfection. But there had been cracks lately. Small things. Rachel's frustration when Emma needed attention. Her short temper, the way she'd been spending more time with her personal trainer, Craig, a development that had stirred jealousy Marcus thought he'd buried. And then there was the life insurance. 6 months ago, Rachel had suggested increasing the policies on both kids. Just to be responsible, she'd said. Marcus, busy with a high-profile murder case, had signed without really thinking about it. How much had she increased them to? He couldn't remember. Why didn't you say something at the party? Marcus asked. Dylan's eyes filled with tears. I was scared. Mom saw me in the treehouse right after. She looked right at me. She knew I saw. Did she say anything to you? No. But Dad, the way she looked at me. I got scared. I didn't know what to do. And then everyone was screaming and the ambulance came and Dylan started crying. Is Emma going to be okay? Marcus pulled his son into a hug, but his mind was elsewhere. If Dylan was telling the truth, and his gut said the boy was, then Rachel had attempted to murder their daughter. The question was why, and what Marcus should do about it. He couldn't go to the police. Not yet. Not with just an 8-year-old's testimony against the word of a grieving mother. The optics were terrible. Rachel's family was influential. Her uncle was a state congressman. Her mother, Linda, ran one of Portland's biggest charity foundations. They destroy him in the press, paint him as a bitter husband trying to frame his innocent wife. And if Rachel even suspected that Dylan had talked, no, Marcus needed more. He needed evidence, motive, proof, and he needed to keep both his kids safe. Dylan, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Can you do that? His son nodded, wiping his eyes. You cannot tell anyone what you told me. Not Grandma, not Grandpa, not your friends. Especially not Mom. Do you understand? But I believe you. Okay, I believe you. But I need to handle this the right way, and that means we have to be smart. Can you trust me? Dylan looked uncertain, but nodded. What are you going to do? Good question, Marcus thought. What was he going to do? I'm going to find the truth, he said. And I'm going to protect you and Emma. I promise. Chapter 3. Beneath the Surface. At 3 a.m., Marcus sat in his home office, the house dark and empty. Rachel had texted that she was staying at her mother's, too upset to be in the house where it happened. Fine. That gave him time. He started with the life insurance. Logging into their joint financial accounts, Marcus pulled up the policies. His blood ran cold. Emma's policy had been increased from $100,000 to $1.5 million. Dylan's had been bumped from $100,000 to $750,000. The difference in amounts was telling. Emma had been the primary target. But why? Marcus opened Rachel's laptop. They'd always known each other's passwords, a sign of trust he now recognized as foolish. He started digging through her emails, her files, her browser history. What he found made him sick. Rachel had been having an affair with Craig Winters, her personal trainer, for 8 months. The emails were explicit, filled with plans for a future together. But Craig had problems. He was 28, broke, and apparently deep in gambling debt to some dangerous people. In one email from 2 weeks ago, Rachel had written, "Don't worry, baby. I'm handling it. By August, we'll have everything we need to start over. Trust me. By August." 1 month away. Marcus kept digging. He found searches in Rachel's browser history. How long does child death investigation take? Life insurance payout timeline accidental death. Can husband contest life insurance if wife is beneficiary? She'd also been researching divorce lawyers, but had apparently decided against that route. Too expensive, too messy, and she'd likely lose custody and face steep alimony payments. Marcus made significantly more than her, close to $400,000 a year from his law practice. No, divorce wasn't Rachel's style. She wanted everything: the house, the money, the sympathetic widow narrative. And apparently, she was willing to kill for it. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from his brother-in-law, Jake. "Hey man, just checking in. Rachel seems really shaken up. Linda's worried about her. You holding up okay?" Jake. Decent guy. Married to Rachel's sister Melissa. Marcus had always liked him. But could he trust him? Could he trust anyone in Rachel's family? He needed allies. Real ones. Marcus picked up his phone and dialed a number he'd kept from his early days as a public defender. "Whoever this is, it's 3 in the fucking morning," came a gravelly voice. "Det, it's Marcus Chun." A pause. Chun? Jesus. Haven't heard from you in what, 5 years? Since the Kowalski case. Detective Raymond Booker, dead to friends, had been Marcus's contact in the Portland PD when Marcus was building his reputation. They'd butted heads on cases, but developed mutual respect. Det had retired 2 years ago, started doing private investigation work. I need your help, Marcus said, and I need absolute discretion. That's serious? My wife just tried to kill our daughter. Another pause, longer this time. I'm listening. Marcus laid it out. The fall, Dylan's testimony, the life insurance, the affair, everything. Det listened without interrupting, a skill that came from 25 years of detective work. You need evidence that'll hold up, Det said when Marcus finished. Kid's testimony is a start, but with the family's connections and your wife's public image, you'll need more. Way more. I know. That's why I'm calling you. Okay. First, that playground. Did anyone else see anything? Not that I know of. The adults were all by the pool and grill area. Security cameras? Nothing that covers that corner of the yard. What about the house? Internal cameras? Marcus's mind raced. They had a security system with cameras covering the front door, back door, and driveway. But, wait, the doorbell camera. It has a wide angle. Might catch the edge of the playground. Check that footage. Now, before it gets accidentally deleted. Marcus was already moving, pulling up the app on his phone. The Ring doorbell had a 160-degree view. He scrubbed through the footage from yesterday, around the time of the incident. There, in the far corner of the frame, grainy but visible, the playground. Emma on the platform, and then a figure in a blue sundress. Rachel had been wearing blue yesterday. The figure climbed up behind Emma, looked around, then the angle wasn't perfect, but Marcus could see arms extend, Emma pitch forward, and the figure quickly descend and move out of frame. I've got something, Marcus breathed. It's not crystal clear, but it's there. Download it. Save it 3 different places. Cloud, external drive, send it to a trusted email. Do it now. Marcus did, his hands shaking. Done. Good. Now here's what we're going to do. Chapter 4. The Investigation. Marcus spent the next 3 days playing the concerned father while building his case. Emma woke up on day 2, confused but alive. Her recovery would take months, but she was going to make it. Rachel played the doting mother, barely leaving Emma's bedside, except when Marcus was there, taking breaks that Marcus suspected involved phone calls to Craig. That worked fast. Within 48 hours, he had Craig Winters under surveillance and had pulled his financial records through connections Marcus didn't ask about. The gambling debt was real, $85,000 owed to an outfit connected to the Volkov crime family's Portland operations. Craig had been making monthly payments, but they wanted the principal, and they wanted it now. Your wife's boy toy has been getting threats. Det reported over coffee at a diner far from Marcus's usual haunts. He's desperate, which makes him dangerous and potentially useful. Useful how? Leverage. If we can flip him, get him to testify that Rachel planned this, we got her cold. Marcus shook his head. He's in love with her. He won't turn. Everyone turns when their options narrow enough. Trust me. Det also dug into Rachel's past, and what he found was illuminating. Before Marcus, Rachel had been engaged to a man named Trevor Mills. The engagement ended suddenly when Trevor broke it off, citing Rachel's obsessive behavior. Det had tracked Trevor down. He now lived in Seattle, happily married. I wouldn't talk much at first, Det said. But when I mentioned what happened to your daughter, he opened up. Said Rachel had a mean streak, that she destroyed his car after the breakup and tried to get him fired from his job. He also said she'd once mentioned, during an argument, that accidents can happen to anyone. Gave him chills at the time. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Can he testify to that? Maybe. But here's the thing. We need to be strategic about when we reveal what we know. If Rachel catches wind that we're onto her, she might run. Or worse. Exactly. So we play this smart. What's Emma's recovery timeline? Another week in a hospital, then home. She'll need months of physical therapy. And your son? Dylan's staying with my parents. Rachel wanted him back home, but I convinced her he'd be too traumatized seeing Emma's empty room. Good thinking. Keep him safe. Det leaned forward. Here's my recommendation. We gather everything, every piece of evidence, every witness statement. We document Rachel's affair in detail. We get Craig's financial records showing his debts. And then we set a trap. What kind of trap? The kind where Rachel reveals herself. Because here's the thing, she thinks she got away with it. She thinks you're the grieving father buying her performance. Confident people make mistakes. Marcus considered this. His entire career had been built on anticipating moves, on setting traps in cross-examination that witnesses walked right into. He could do this. What do you need from me? Det smiled, and it wasn't a friendly expression. Everything about Rachel's routine, her contacts, her vulnerabilities. And Shun, you need to be ready for what comes next. This won't be clean. I don't care about clean anymore, Marcus said. I care about justice. Chapter 5. The Pieces Move. 2 weeks after the fall, life had settled into a new rhythm. Emma was home, in a wheelchair, but smiling more each day. Rachel had taken a leave of absence from her marketing job, playing the devoted mother, while Marcus noticed she spent an awful lot of time texting when she thought he wasn't looking. Marcus had become an expert at the long game. Every day, he acted the part of the understanding husband. He even suggested marriage counseling to help us process the trauma together. Rachel had agreed, perhaps seeing it as another opportunity to cement her innocent image. Behind the scenes, Det's investigation expanded. He'd recruited another former cop, a woman named Angela Torres who specialized in tech forensics. She'd pulled data from Rachel's phone, backed up to the cloud, that showed the full extent of the affair and, more damningly, searches for how to stage child's accidental death dating back 3 months. Marcus also reached out to an old colleague, Sarah Wong, a family law attorney who had her own reasons to despise Rachel. Years ago, Rachel had spread rumors about Sarah at a charity event, nearly costing her a partnership at her firm. When Marcus explained the situation in vague terms, needing to protect his kids from their mother, Sarah had been immediately on board. When you're ready to file for custody, Sarah said over a secure call, I'll bury her, but you'll need ironclad evidence. We're working on it. Good. Because guys in custody battles start from behind. Marcus, even with evidence, you'll face skepticism. We need overwhelming proof. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Jake, Rachel's brother-in-law. Marcus had invited Jake to lunch, ostensibly to thank him for his support during the crisis. But as they ate, Marcus carefully probed, asking about Rachel's state of mind, whether Jake had noticed anything unusual. Jake hesitated, then said, Look, man, I probably shouldn't say anything. Jake, if there's something I should know, it's just, Melissa and I had Rachel and Craig over for dinner last month. You were working late on that case. And I don't want to start rumors, but the way they looked at each other, I told Melissa we shouldn't have Craig around without you there. Did Melissa say anything to Rachel? She tried. But Rachel blew up, said Melissa was being paranoid. They haven't really talked since. Jake looked genuinely uncomfortable. I like you, Marcus. You're good people. I hope I'm wrong about what I think I saw. Marcus made a decision. Jake, can I trust you? Really trust you? Of course. Rachel pushed Emma off that playground. Dylan saw it happen. Jake's face went white. What? I have evidence. I'm building a case. But I need to know, if this comes down to family taking sides, where do you stand? Jake was quiet for a long moment. Jesus. I believe you. I do. Melissa's been saying something's been off with Rachel for years, but family is complicated. I need allies, Jake. People who will stand up and tell the truth when the time comes. I'll talk to Melissa. She'll be devastated, but she'll do the right thing. Jake shook his head. Does Linda know? Rachel's mother. The matriarch. The woman with all the connections. Not yet. And she can't know until I'm ready to move. Linda will protect Rachel no matter what. You know that, right? Marcus nodded, which is why timing is everything. Chapter 6. The Trap Springs. 3 weeks after the fall, Marcus made his move. He'd set it up perfectly with Det and Angela's help. They'd created a fake email account in Craig's name and sent messages to Rachel suggesting they meet somewhere private, a cabin in the Columbia River Gorge that Craig had mentioned in their correspondence. The email claimed he'd found a solution to his debt problem and needed her help with one last step. Rachel took the bait immediately, telling Marcus she needed to visit a friend who was going through a rough time. Would you be okay with Emma for the afternoon? Of course, Marcus said, playing the supportive husband. Take all the time you need. What Rachel didn't know was that debt had bugged her car and Angela had cloned her phone. They'd hear every word, see every text. Meanwhile, Marcus had his own plan. He invited Linda, Rachel's mother, over for dinner, along with Uncle Richard the congressman. A family gathering, he'd called it. Linda had been surprised but pleased, assuming Marcus wanted to strengthen family bonds after the trauma. Det and Angela waited in Marcus's home office, monitoring feeds. Sarah Wong was on standby, and Dylan, safely at Marcus's parents' house, was the key witness they'd protect at all costs. When Linda and Richard arrived, Marcus served wine and made small talk. Then, as casually as possible, he said, "Actually, there's something I need to show you both. It's about the accident." Linda's smile flickered. "Marcus, dear, I don't think we should dwell on. It wasn't an accident." Marcus opened his laptop, turning the screen toward them. "This is footage from our doorbell camera. Watch the right side of the frame." He played the video. Once then again. Linda's face drained of color. Richard leaned forward, squinting. That's Rachel," Richard said slowly. "Is she?" Pushing Emma off the platform. "Yes." "This is absurd." Linda stood, voice shaking. "You can't possibly be suggesting." "I'm not suggesting. I'm stating. Rachel attempted to murder our daughter. I have this footage, I have Dylan's eyewitness testimony, and I have evidence of motive." Marcus pulled out printed documents, the life insurance policies, excerpt from Rachel's emails to Craig, her search history. Dylan also saw. He never said. Linda looked genuinely shaken now, because he was terrified. Rachel saw him witness it. What do you think she might have done if he'd told? Richard picked up the documents, reading through them with the careful attention of a politician who understood evidence. His expression darkened. "Linda, if this is true." "It's not. It can't be." "Rachel would never." "Mom would never what?" They all turned. Rachel stood in the doorway, her face a mask of shock that almost looked genuine. "Marcus, what's going on? Why are Mom and Uncle Richard here? And what is all this?" "You're supposed to be at the cabin," Marcus said calmly. Rachel blinked. "What cabin?" "Marcus, what are you talking about?" "The cabin Craig told you about. For your meeting." "I don't know what you—" Rachel stopped, understanding dawning. "Are you spying on me?" "I'm protecting our children." Marcus stood. "I know everything, Rachel. The affair, the debt, the plan. Emma was supposed to die so you could collect the insurance money and run off with your boyfriend." "That's insane." Rachel's voice rose, but Marcus saw panic in her eyes. "Mom, Uncle Richard, you can't believe this." Linda looked torn, but Richard's political instincts had kicked in. He was already calculating damage control. "Rachel, if there's any truth to what Marcus is saying, you need to come clean now. For your own sake. There's no truth to it. He's trying to frame me. He's been acting strange for weeks, paranoid, controlling." "I have footage," Marcus said quietly. "I have your search history, your emails, your text messages, and I have our son's testimony. How exactly am I framing you?" Rachel's mask cracked. Her face twisted into something ugly. "Dylan, that little—" She stopped herself, but too late. "That little what?" Marcus prompted. "Witness? The son you were planning to kill next once the first insurance payout cleared." "I want a lawyer," Rachel said suddenly. "I'm not saying another word." "Good idea," Det said, walking in from the office, badge from his retirement still in hand for effect. "Because you're going to need one." Chapter 7. The Confrontation. The next hour was chaos. Rachel lunged for the laptop, trying to destroy the evidence, but Det blocked her. Linda screamed that Marcus was destroying the family. Richard made phone calls, already distancing himself from the scandal that was about to break. And through it all, Marcus remained calm. This was his courtroom, his cross-examination, and he'd rehearsed every move. "You can't prove anything," Rachel hissed. "That video is grainy. Dylan's a child. A good attorney will shred your case." "Maybe," Marcus said. "But here's the thing. I don't need a criminal conviction to destroy you. I just need enough for the custody case. And Sarah Wong, the attorney you tried to ruin 5 years ago, is very much looking forward to representing me. Rachel paled. Marcus, please. We can work this out. I made mistakes, I was confused, but I never meant. Stop. Marcus's voice cut like a blade. I've watched you perform for weeks. I know what you are, and you're not walking away from this. Linda tried one more time. Marcus, think about the children. Do you want them growing up knowing their mother is in prison? Think about Emma. I am thinking about Emma. Marcus's composure cracked slightly. Emma, who could have died, who spent hours in surgery, who'll have scars for the rest of her life. And I'm thinking about Dylan, who has nightmares now because he watched his mother try to murder his sister. The room went silent. Here's what's going to happen. Marcus continued, back in control. Rachel, you're going to leave this house tonight. You're going to move in with your mother. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, and for full custody with a restraining order. If you fight it, every piece of evidence I have goes public. The affair, the insurance fraud, the attempted murder, all of it. You wouldn't, Rachel said. The scandal would hurt the kids. Less than having a murderer for a mother. Try me. Det stepped forward. There's also the matter of my friend Craig Winters. You might want to know, he got picked up by the Volkov organization 2 hours ago. He's very motivated to cooperate with authorities right now in exchange for protection. Rachel's face went ashen. You set me up. All of it. The email, the cabin. You set yourself up, Marcus said. I just gave you enough rope. Richard cleared his throat. Rachel, listen to me carefully. You need to take Marcus's offer. If this goes public, I can't protect you. The family can't protect you. You'll be destroyed. So that's it. Rachel looked around wildly. You're all just going to turn on me? You turned on yourself when you hurt that little girl, Det said quietly. Linda was crying now, but Marcus felt no sympathy. This woman had raised a monster and was only upset because the monster's mask had slipped. I'll give you one more option, Marcus said. Sign away custody voluntarily. Agree to supervised visitation only. Keep the affair and debts quiet, and I won't push for criminal charges. You get to walk away damaged, but not destroyed. And if I refuse, then I make it my life's mission to see you in prison for attempted murder. I'm very good at my job, Rachel. You know that. And now I'm motivated. Rachel looked at her mother, her uncle, seeing no help coming. Finally, she looked back at Marcus with pure hatred. Fine, I'll sign your papers. But this isn't over. Yes, Marcus said. It is. Chapter 8, The Reckoning. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Rachel signed the custody papers within 48 hours, under the watchful eyes of Sarah Wong and Linda's own attorney. The restraining order went into effect immediately. Rachel couldn't come within 500 feet of either child. Craig Winters, true to Det's prediction, flipped completely. In exchange for witness protection and help with his debts, he provided a detailed statement about his relationship with Rachel, including conversations where she'd explicitly discussed solving all their problems once the insurance paid out. He'd thought she meant divorce. The truth had horrified him. Linda tried to salvage what she could, but Richard cut all ties publicly, releasing a statement condemning his niece's actions and supporting Marcus's custody decision. Political survival trumped family loyalty. Marcus granted Rachel one supervised visit with Emma and Dylan, monitored by a court-appointed official. Watching through a one-way mirror as Rachel tried to play the loving mother, Marcus felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Emma, still recovering, seemed confused but not traumatized by her mother's presence. Dylan wouldn't look at Rachel at all. I'm sorry. Rachel tried at one point, reaching for Dylan's hand. I'm sorry you had to see. Don't talk to me, Dylan said quietly. It was the most adult thing Marcus had ever heard his son say. After the visit, Marcus took both kids for ice cream. Emma chattered about her physical therapy and a show she liked. Dylan was quieter, but as they drove home, he said, Dad, did I do the right thing? Telling you? Marcus pulled over, turning to look at his son. You saved your sister's life, and probably your own. You did the bravest thing I've ever seen. Some kids at school say I got Mom in trouble, that I shouldn't have told. Those kids don't understand what you saw. What Mom did. You protected your family. Never doubt that. Dylan nodded, and some of the weight seemed to lift from his young shoulders. The divorce finalized in record time. 3 months. Expedited due to the criminal nature of Rachel's actions and her own desire to escape further public exposure. Rachel took her maiden name back, moved to Sacramento to live with a cousin, and was barred from contacting the children except through supervised visits she rarely requested. The life insurance policies were canceled and reported to the authorities. No charges were ultimately filed. The DA's office said the evidence was strong, but not quite enough for a jury, and Rachel's departure from Oregon eliminated the immediate threat. Marcus suspected Richard had made some calls, protecting the family name one last time. But Marcus had never cared about criminal charges. He'd cared about protecting his kids. Chapter 9. New Foundations. 6 months later, Marcus stood in his backyard, watching Emma play on a new, lower playground set he'd built with deliberate care. Every bolt was secure. Every surface was padded. She'd never be in danger here again. Dylan sat on the deck, doing homework, but occasionally glanced up to check on his sister. That protective instinct had strengthened after everything, and Marcus both admired and worried about it. 8 was too young to carry that weight. "Hey, buddy." Marcus sat down next to him. "How's the math?" "Fine." Dylan put down his pencil. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you think Mom ever loved us?" "Really?" It was the question Marcus had dreaded. He could lie, make it easier, but Dylan deserved the truth. "I think Mom loved the idea of us. The perfect family, the image we presented. But real love means putting others first, protecting them, sacrificing for them. Mom only knew how to love herself." Dylan processed this. "Do you think she wanted to hurt Emma? Or just the money?" "Honestly, I think she convinced herself the money was more important than Emma's life. That's how bad people justify bad things." "Are you glad she's gone?" "Yes," Marcus said simply. "Not because I hate her, but because you and Emma are safe. And that's all that matters to me." Emma ran over, her cast recently removed, but still favoring one leg. "Daddy, watch me go down the slide." They watched her climb carefully and slide down with a shriek of delight. She'd have scars, physical and likely psychological, but she was alive. She was safe. Det called later that evening while Marcus was making dinner. "Thought you'd want to know. Rachel lost her job in Sacramento. Word got around about what she did. She's working retail now." "Good," Marcus said without hesitation. "You're cold, Shun. I like it. I'm practical. She tried to kill my daughter. She deserves worse than retail work." "Fair. How are the kids?" Marcus looked at Dylan reading in the living room, Emma coloring on the floor beside him. "They're good. We're good. You did right by them. Not every father would have had the stones to do what you did. Not every father has to discover his wife is a murderer." "True. Listen, I'm sending you my final invoice, but I wanted to say, if you ever need anything, you call. Those kids deserve someone looking out for them." "Thanks, Detective, for everything." After dinner, Marcus tucked Emma into bed, reading her favorite story about a princess who saved herself. Then he checked on Dylan, who was still awake, staring at the ceiling. "Can't sleep?" Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, just thinking about how different everything is now. Like, we used to be one kind of family, and now we're a different kind. Is that bad? Dylan considered. "No, different isn't bad. Just different." He looked at Marcus. "You're better now, Dad. Before, you were busy all the time. Now you're here." Marcus felt that hit hard. "You're right. I was too busy, too focused on work, on providing. I missed what was happening in my own house. But you figured it out, and you stopped her." Dylan's voice was firm. "You're a good dad. I'm trying to be better. You are better." Later, after Dylan had fallen asleep, Marcus sat on his deck with a beer, looking at the stars. His phone buzzed, a text from Sarah Wong. Rachel's attorney filed for modification of custody. Wants unsupervised visitation. Marcus typed back, "No, not now, not ever. That's why I told them. Just wanted you to know she's still trying." Marcus deleted the text chain and blocked the number. Rachel was his past. His kids were his future. He thought about everything that had led to this moment. The party, the fall, Dylan's courage, Det's investigation, the confrontation. Every decision had been calculated, every move strategic. He'd played the game better than Rachel had, and he'd won. But the victory didn't feel triumphant. It felt necessary. Marcus had learned that monsters don't always announce themselves. Sometimes they sleep beside you,